Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged. Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. Today we are featuring a special guest. We have Mr. Todd Nesloney. How are you doing today, Todd?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Hey, Todd, man, we're so glad to have you on. I've followed you for a while on social media and just, there's so many things that we share that are similar and ideas and beliefs. And so, yeah, we were excited to have you on today.
Well, Brad, I'm excited to be here. So thank you for the invite.
Let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, so I have been an instructional aide who became a teacher, who became a principal, and now I get to work as the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership for the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association, also known as TEPSA. So I get to do all that as well as get to do some consulting, some speaking. I've been an author of a couple books, had some really cool opportunities in my career. But education's definitely a realm that I always knew I wanted to be in. Let me take that back. I knew I wanted to work with kids always. I thought it would be social work until I really started diving into all the work behind social work and realized I don't do good about separating the emotions out from that kind of work. So then I was like, how else can I impact and work with kids? And that's where I fell in love with education and then realized, well, wow, working with adults is fun too because they're just like big kids. And so that's kind of where that passion came from.
Wow, yeah. It sounds like you've had quite a journey so far. Which of your personal qualities do you think has made the biggest impact on the progress that you've made and your success as a leader?
That is a great question. I think as I reflect on my path and things that are really important to me, one of the biggest things that's always been important to me is authenticity.
Mhm.
Whether that is who I choose to portray myself as on social media, how I am behind a microphone, in front of a group, behind a closed door, one-on-one with a close friend. I want that person to be the same in each one of those spaces. I've always run into people that I've admired or I've really loved working with, only to find out that when the door closes, they become somebody completely different. And that has left such a heavy impact on me because I tend to be very trusting of people that I've always told myself, I want to be the person that people think I am. So when they follow me on social media and see me say things and then they meet me in person, I want those to match. When I'm leading a group of people and I'm saying what I believe in and what I want to do and I'm pushing boundaries, I want that to match who I am when they're one-on-one with me and we're real talking it in a smaller group. I want all of those to align. And so that's always been important to me as a leader because I think the moment people see that who they're following is who other people are seeing as well, they trust you more and they're willing to try more exciting ideas or boundary pushing things or take more risks. And when you fail at taking those risks, which happens often, you find that people will rally alongside of you knowing that, you know what, we're going to use this as a learning opportunity and we're going to move forward because we're in this together, because we have a similar vision or we're on the same team, that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. And that's one of my favorite words. I know vulnerability is pretty popular now, and there's a place for that. But I'm like you, I'm all about the authenticity because who, like you said, who we are in public and behind the closed door, if it doesn't match, then what's real? And, it's like you said, it's hard to trust somebody that's not that authentic self all the time. So Yeah, that's and it's even like you said, kind of exacerbated in the social media world.
Uh-huh.
So that it's great that's such a focus, and that really does lend itself to trust, even regardless of what role you were in, moving up through the ranks over the years. That's something that allows your team to kind of coalesce around you and be there for you. And like you said, and so when you make a mistake, they're much more understandable too, because
Mhm.
they know you're being real about it. So
Now, I will
those are
say,
great.
it is hard to be authentic. I will say that. Because what you learn is not everybody likes who you are. And so I can be me all day long, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to like me or everybody's going to want to work with me or anything like that. And so, me being a people pleaser at heart, too, I'm constantly having to remind myself, just be you. If they don't like it, you'll find a way to work through, move on, go somewhere else. But it's better that you be who you are now instead of feeling like somebody was duped down the road.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. And we talk about that sometimes, like even at the end of the show. So, well, I'll give away the cliffhanger, but we ask, is your favorite drink coffee or latte or espresso? And so the thing is, yeah, not everybody is everybody's cup of tea or cup of coffee. And so, like you said, it's just as staying true to yourself. And the one thing I liked you said too, and it reminds me, we talk a lot about agreeableness, personality trait agreeableness, and it's people that are kind, empathetic, caring, and so you fit that to a T. And but that kind of person doesn't really like conflict, or and you really care about what others think almost too much. And what really hit that is when you talked about social work, because the two main career paths for people that are highly agreeable is social work, but the number one is actually the teaching profession. So, you really are almost like the poster child for that, which is a good thing, because it reinforces that you are kind, caring, empathetic, man, which are such important traits, whether you're a teacher or a leader.
Right, right. No, I agree. I think, and and I will say, I often talk about this when I share things in my presentations or when I'm working with a group. Is one of the things I never thought I would be a part of, but that has completely changed my life, is going to therapy. And I will never forget being in some professional development and hearing them talk about how much as adults we take care of our physical health, how we're told to see a dentist twice a year. We're told to take your young children to their 6-month appointment, their 1 year, their 2 year. And he was like, why do you do that? And we were like, well, you're getting checked up. And he's like, exactly. You're making sure everything is progressing as normal. And he said, but we work in education. We work in a field where people put other people first more often than they put themselves first. They're pouring into the kids, the families, their team, whatever it is. And he said, so when does your mental health come into check? Like, are you going at least twice a year to get your mental health checked? And I heard that and I thought, that is such an interesting concept that I had never considered before. And I remember I was like, well, everything's going great in my life right now. So now's the time to see a therapist, because if they can't help me when it's great, they definitely ain't going to be able to help me when it's bad. And so I found a therapist. I went. My wife was like, is everything okay? And I said, yes, everything's fine. I'm a questioner. And so I want to question what I heard in this training and see what this therapy thing is about. Because I was raised in the South in little old country towns where if you're seeing a therapist, something's wrong. And so I was like, I wanna break that stereotype. I want to see what this really is about. And I have now been going almost every week for 3 years now, and it has been life changing. And for me being that, and that's where all this ties together, is me being that people pleaser and that empathetic person and that one who I want to do well. I want to lead well at home. I want to lead well with my friends. I want to lead well at work. I want to be my best version of myself. Therapy has really helped me dive into different pieces of me and my thought process and what I say and things like that. That's where I think it has been the most game changing for me, to have an outside voice that's not involved in my everyday life,
Mm.
just to let me spew my thoughts and then speak truth back into me. And that has been such a game changer that I tell everybody now. I'm like, if you're not in therapy, you should be at least twice a year, because it has been that life changing for me.
That sounds almost like having a mentor, that you go to and
Exactly.
share and
Yeah.
pitch these ideas and everything. And like you said, it's not someone that's like really engaged with your life all the time. So they have that room to, or you have that safety with them, that that's basically where you go with them. So that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm. Yeah, and like you said, I think the big thing too is it's nice having that person who's not there every day, because then they can ask questions because they're not in the mix. So they can be like, "So why are you doing this? So you said this. I don't know that person, but here's how you're describing them." So that's the best part, is
Mm,
not having somebody who's hears you every day and may miss some of those things or not ask you those deeper questions.
absolutely, that's good.
So you mentioned being somewhat of a people pleaser. Do you think that maybe talking to a therapist, you're in an environment where, you don't have to do that. That
Mm.
doesn't have to be part of your aim to please that person.
That's a good question. I've never thought about it like that. I think that my therapist will probably say I'm constantly breaking that down. Because I think even in those situations, it's not necessarily people pleasing, but I still find myself guarded at times in therapy.
Mhm.
It's still uncomfortable for me to be
Mhm.
there, but I've always been of that belief, and I've always told my team, if we're not uncomfortable, we're not learning. And so every time I'm like, I want to cancel this week's appointment. Like I'm uncomfortable, or I don't I always remind myself, nope, you're uncomfortable for a reason. It's time to work through it, and it's time to learn something from this. That's what I talk about. I better be living what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think as far as being a people pleaser, even in that situation, I don't necessarily see it as much of that, because the conversation is so much about me. And so
Mhm.
I think sometimes though he'll go, okay, that answer was really guarded. What are you trying to say now? Or I don't think that's really how you're feeling based upon how you normally talk in here, or your cadence or your tone. He's like, so let's try an exercise to get the truth out of you, because I don't feel like, and he knows, he's like, and he always tells me, he's like, I know you're gonna say no to this homework I'm gonna give you. He's like, because I know how you are. He said, but I want you to just try it. And I'm like, okay, I will try it, because it always ends up working. But yeah, I'm a hard headed in that way too.
That's awesome.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your leadership roles?
There's so many challenges that come, and being a school principal in general. Let me just discuss that role. I think that's one of the most misunderstood positions in education. There are so many layers to being a teacher. There are so many joyful moments. It is so difficult. The weight and the load that is put on teachers is not understood by people who are not in education. So I don't
Mhm.
want to take away from that at all. I was a teacher. I know how hard it is being a teacher. I also thought, as a teacher, that I knew what my administrators were doing all day. I thought I could get in that position and know what it is, until I started really reflecting and realized we all do that in every position. As an instructional aide, I thought I knew what a teacher did, and then I got hired and realized I had no idea. As a teacher, I thought I knew what my administrators did, till I became an administrator and realized I had no idea. Because when you get into a role, especially one like administration, you quickly realize how much of the role you cannot publicly talk about while you're in the role.
Mm.
There were a
Mhm.
lot of weights that my administration team and I had to carry. I couldn't tell the team, this is a battle we're fighting right now. I couldn't go out there and publicly discuss. I just got threatened by a parent. I have a police escort now to protect me. This kid threatened to kill us. This other one ran off the school today. Like, I couldn't talk about those things because that's part of the job. It's part of what I signed up for. But that kind of hidden weight was something that was really unexpected for me when I became a administrator. I knew it would be more of a workload and difficult pieces, but I didn't realize, or I wasn't prepared for, the amount of weight that I would have to carry that nobody would see me carrying, and I'd still have to hold it all
Mhm.
together and be who my team and those students and those families needed me to be. And I say that in saying, show some love to your administrators. It is rough out there for admin. And the amount of heat that administrators get for decisions that they have no control over is insane. But it's also on top of that, I think the other really thing that was difficult for me as a leader was learning how to work with so many personalities. Goodness gracious. In a classroom, I could do that. Like I only had 25 to 30 personalities at a time. But when I was a principal, good Lord, I got the personalities of 800 or so more parents, 800 students, 150 member staff. Like I was dealing with every version of every personality all the time. And sometimes people with differing personalities throughout the day. And so learning how to navigate that in a way that was respectful to who they were and not trying to change them, because that was never my job, was to change somebody's personality. It was my job to learn how to work within that space. And that was a lot of growth for me and a lot of learning process for me. And something I'm still learning today is how to really respect people for who they are, where they are, but still in the midst of that, find a way to push and challenge them and make them better. Because I feel like that's my role as a leader, is to constantly be growing you. I will never forget working underneath my favorite principal I ever worked under. And she said, if I'm doing my job correctly as your principal, I'm making you the most marketable teacher in the country. People should be beating down your door to steal you from our campus because I'm doing my job right. She said, that's my ultimate goal. And that was always stuck with me of, sometimes as principals, we like to hold on to our staff. We don't want to lose them. They're amazing. And they are amazing. And I don't want to lose them. But at the same time, I want to be growing them into this person who's so marketable that they could go anywhere and people would hire them on the spot.
Oh, absolutely. And you're so right. Actually, it's funny. I tweeted out this morning the one where I talk about we hire teachers for their strengths, but then we manage them on their weaknesses. And like you said, we want to develop them. We want to grow them. We want them to be their absolute best. So like you said, yeah, anybody would want to get them, but you hopefully engage, care about them, take care of them enough they don't want to leave. But if they had to, man, they're ready to go. But you're so right about the principal role. And sometimes I think they are. I often say it's the loneliest job, but sometimes it's probably the least understood, like you said, because, your role is always trying to balance everything that's coming from above, from the district, the new initiatives, the rules, whatever it is. And then you're trying to balance that with taking care of your staff. And so it's like a struggle or tug of war between, like you said, all these things coming down on you. And I think the biggest thing with principals that I really wish could change some way is they have so much responsibility put on them, but they don't have very much authority to change those things that they have. And to me, that's what makes it such a tough role.
I think you're exactly right with that. And one thing, too, that I would like to say for people that are listening, the amount of administrators in education nowhere compares to the amount of teachers. And so when we're working in a field like education, we can meet a lot of different teachers, and we have really good partners. We have really partners who we don't care for, ones who are mediocre, but you don't always get a lot of experience with administrators. So if you're listening to this thinking, I don't care what you're saying, my principal is the worst principal ever. Like they don't have any redeeming qualities. And you know what? I'm here to say, you might be right. You may have a terrible one because bad apples get through all the time. And so I don't think Brad, Jeremy, or I are saying that every administrator is just amazing and you should be telling them that and their workload and all this stuff. I get it. There aren't administrators who are doing it great sometimes. There aren't teachers who are doing it great sometimes. There aren't instructional aides who are doing it great sometimes. That's part of the workforce. I think the conversation here, just to bring that back, is just that give people the benefit of the doubt and keep that mindset that you never see everything going on. Ever. No matter if we're talking personal or professional, you never know the full picture. Even if you think they're telling you everything, you never know the full picture. And so I think embracing that and approaching every person with giving them the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong, like I think starting from there is a great starting point. So just to make that clear for those who are listening and have never had a good admin, I know there are some really sucky ones, but for the most part, people are doing the best they can and they're doing the best with what they have.
Oh, that's such a good word, and you're exactly right. And like you said, whether it's a teacher, administrator, or any other role, it's just like in life. There's some good, there's some that not. But
Mhm.
like you said, I don't think any of them their goal is to be bad. And so,
Right,
like you
right.
said, give them the benefit of the doubt, and support them regardless.
Mhm.
But man, that was powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us about a teacher or two that had the greatest impact on your personal development?
That is a great question. I became an educator. Another reason was because I didn't have any of those in my schooling experience.
Hmm.
I can look back at my entire educational career and I can't really think of one teacher who left an impact. And I say that in the same vein of I had a very involved mom. I was an AB honor roll student. I was never in trouble. I did all my work. I was talkative but respectful. So it was easy for me to fall in the cracks. Whereas he's doing everything he needs to do, like we're gonna let him be. His family's involved. We're good to go, that kind of thing. And so I knew that when I became an educator, there were two things that I chose. I said, number one, I want to be a math teacher because I hated math in school and I want to change that for other kids. And number two, I want to be a teacher where if all they remember about me is, gosh, he really liked me. Like that's was one of the things that I really wanted to leave that impact so that no kid ever went through school feeling like they didn't measure up or they weren't noticed or they weren't valuable. I really worked hard in the classroom to make every kid know that there was value I saw in them. And becoming a administrator, I tried to parlay that into doing the same thing with my team because that's not something that goes away with childhood, that extends into adulthood. And so even working with teachers, that's the most powerful thing for me is when you see someone change just because for the first time since they can remember, you noticed them or
Mm.
you acknowledged them or you brought to light their value that they had hidden away or forgotten about. And so I think that's when I think about teachers who left an impact, I can't really think of them when I was in school. Now, I can think of educators since I've been an adult or in my career that have left an impact there. I can think of an educator who left a bad impact, but as far as positive ones, not really. And that's not saying I had bad teachers. I don't want that to come across at all. If one of my old teachers is listening or whatever, I didn't. I don't remember really disliking any of my teachers.
Mhm.
I had an administrator I hated, but when I was in high school, but as far as teachers, I don't remember disliking any of them. So it was just a matter of I did my stuff and they let me be.
Well, I think that's a good point you make, though, that you were a good student. You probably did okay on the standardized tests and stuff. So those tend to fall in the crack because they're not, because I was that way. I remember, well, I got in trouble some because I taught too much. But man, it's like, okay, you do well on standardized tests. So it's like they leave you alone instead of
Mhm.
pushing you,
Yeah.
and because they're always so focused on the ones trying to meet the standard. And to me,
Yep.
that's a big disservice. And it's kind of a flaw in education today because every student deserves to be their best. And like you said, to be noticed and supported to be their best. So that I think that's a good takeaway from there. Just because a student's making good grades and isn't causing trouble doesn't mean they still don't need our support and encouragement and
Right.
pushing them to be their best.
Exactly.
Brett and I talk about self care a lot and how important it is for those in education. How do you take care of yourself? What is your thing other than what we've discussed previously? Hobbies or how do you unwind and get away a little bit?
I love to travel. I love to get out, and even if it's just driving to the town over,
Hmm.
my wife and I are big foodies, so we love to find new restaurants, try new food. It's so funny when we reflect on any vacation we've been on. It's not really the experiences. Remember, it's a restaurant we really ate at that we liked.
Exactly.
We always joke about, we're in Texas. We're the home of Tex-Mex, and my wife is a Latina and makes incredible Mexican food.
Mm.
But I'm a huge Mexican food fan. And so anytime we travel, no matter where it is in the world, we try to find somewhere with Mexican food. And I'll never forget the first place we went to, and it was in Portugal. And she said, "We're really going to eat Mexican food in Portugal." And I was like, "Yes, I mean, I miss it. We've been here like 2 or 3 days. Like, I want to get it." She's like, "It's not going to be good." And then we ate there, and she was like, "Okay, those were the best tacos I've had in my entire life." And I was like, "Yep." So Canada and Portugal are our top two Mexican places in the world that we've eaten at, which is so weird and random. But I think that's one way. I love spending time with family. So I love being with my boys. I love being with my wife. And also, I know some people don't think that this is a good way to wind down, but I love just watching TV. Like at the end of the day, after my twin 3-year-olds are down, it's like we just want to veg, and I can veg and just watch TV. And I know people are like, well, you could be productive, or you could go for a walk, or yeah, okay, I could, but I like just laying on the bed and just laying there for an hour or so and just watching some TV. And I like to find like just a trashy reality show or some crime thing, and just veg out and realize my life could be worse. Look at these crazies on the TV.
I've never thought about it that way. And since you brought that up, I'll do a full confession. And that's one of my ways too, that people are like, oh, you're in education, all this, you watch TV. And, it's not like we binge watch 20 hours a day, but it is nice just to sit down for an hour and just let your brain just go, because they're like, oh, it slows down your brain. I'm like, well, it needs slowed down sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So we got one last tough question for you. This is the tough one, so you might need a minute. But because it's called Lattes and Leaders, we asked everyone, what is your favorite hot beverage? Is it coffee, latte, cappuccino, espresso, or maybe it's none of them?
I love a good coffee, but I prefer it to be more cream and sugar than coffee. My wife is like, my wife says, I want a black coffee and I want a splash of oat milk and like a half a pump of whatever flavoring. And I'm like, that is disgusting. I want take me to Dutch Brothers where it's like 80 grams of sugar in your coffee. Like I'll go through the coma for a couple hours just to have a good sugary drink. Yeah, so I like very sugary coffee.
Yeah,
I prefer it to be iced, though. I don't mind hot coffee, but I do prefer it to be iced.
The ice. So we're from Georgia, the Atlanta area. So I grew up in the South. So we actually call that kind of coffee pie with the cream and the sugar.
I'm stealing it.
So that's a new word for you. You can use. Yeah, it's coffee pie.
Perfect. I'm definitely stealing that.
So before we wrap up here, do you have any nuggets of wisdom you want to leave for those in leadership and those in education?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would leave people with is something that I try to impart no matter where I'm at and speaking and working or doing any of that, is that just to remember that there's always going to be people who tell you you're not doing it right, or you're not good enough, or you're not working hard enough. Like no matter how much you do to somebody, it will not be enough. And in the end, what you have to remember is that you can't let their ignorance define you, because in the end, that's what it is. It's them being ignorant and not understanding your worth or what you're bringing to the table. And so for me, I just hope people listening just hear that. If they heard nothing else in this entire conversation, it's just that reminder that you are here for a reason. You're doing the work you're doing for a reason. You're in the position that you're in for a reason, because nobody else can do what you're about to do this next school year. It may not be the spot you wanted to be in. It may not be the location you wanted to be in. But guess what? I believe with every ounce of my being, and I'm seeing it again and again, that you're there because nobody else can do what you're about to do. Now, next year, you may be where you wanted to be. But right now, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And once you can fully embrace that, you realize how awesome you are and how much you bring to the table.
Oh, I love that. Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Wow.
We've really enjoyed hearing some of your thoughts and just kind of getting a glimpse into your mindset. And I mean, it just sounds like you're doing so many things right. And, we're just really excited that you came on and hope to have you on again very soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It has been such a great time to connect with you too.
Yeah, it has. Thank you so much.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guests, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, bradjohnson.com. Hope to have you back soon.